You're listening to the RockDown Podcast, the podcast that doesn't care how bands got their names. And now, direct from the RockDown Studios, here is your host, Mr. Cheese.
Hello and welcome to the show, and without any further rantings, we will dive straight in. It's an absolute honour. This week we are joined by the incredible and the legend that is Blaze Bayley. Blaze, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you for having me on the show. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Well, it's one of those that, touch wood, we've been very lucky to have some huge names over the last few weeks, but there's a few that I kind of like, I'm quite happy. These are one of the ones where I'm absolutely genuinely delighted. I'm a personal fan, so this is absolutely fantastic, so thank you again.
Oh, great. Well, thank you for having me on the show.
So, like I said, we do touch on the music, but it tends to be a lot more kind of personal questions that we tend to ask. But if there is anyone who just got released from prison today and doesn't know who you are and what you've done, can you give us a very, I know in your case this is incredibly difficult, but can you kind of give us a potted version of your history?
Well, I am Blaze Bayley, and I started out in Wolf, Spain in the late 80s, and we signed up to Deaf American, an American label, and with Wolf Spain, I think we made 5 albums, and I passed an audition and got the job of lead singer of Iron Maiden in, I think, 1993. And I had 5 years with the band, wrote 2 albums with them, and the great and wonderful Bruce Dickinson then came back, and I started my solo career. My first solo album was called Silicon Messiah. I've made 11 solo albums, studio solo albums, and 5 live albums, I think. And now I am just releasing my latest album, which is called War Within Me, which we've tried to keep a very positive theme about mental health and personal difficulties and overcoming the negative and self-destructive voice that sometimes takes hold of your better self.
Indeed. And I should have asked prior to this, how much are we allowed to talk about the new album? Because obviously it's not out until the 9th of April.
Well, it's all out. So some people, some journalists have heard it. So it seems to have gone well. It's nerve-wracking, really, Stuart, when you finish something like this and then it's a while before fans get to hear it. So there's this kind of separation anxiety that I start to get. The longer it is that my fans don't hear it, the worse I expect the reaction to be. So, our heart and soul is on this new record, and we had to finish our final mix last year. We wrote and recorded it last year. In fact, to finish our final mix last year so that we could get our masters to the factory in time to make our vinyl. And then there's just a big gap of time where you've got an album and I don't really want to listen to it because I've been working on it like 24/7 for the last few months. And also I'll still want to mix it again. You've got to let it lie. And then you're thinking, I wonder if anybody will like it. I think I've done a good job, but I'm just not sure. And that's when it really gets you, until the first fan hears the single and says it's okay, or at least says it's not the worst thing they've ever heard, then, I'm nervous. I have this anxiety. But Now, the single War Within Me has been out on Spotify and iTunes, and it's on Amazon Music as well. And that's had a very good reaction. The journalists that have reviewed the album, we've had great reviews. So I'm feeling really positive about it. It was something big in a way because of the times that we're going through. You know, last March 2020, then we did our last gig, which was Burfest in London, sold out gig, wonderful show. We thought the show was going to be cancelled, but it just slipped in, you know, it went ahead. Then after that, every show in Europe was postponed or cancelled. And all of our festivals, we had some really cool festivals booked that we were looking forward to. They were postponed or cancelled. And we had some touring that we were looking forward to that had to go as well. But that did give us extra time to spend on the album and extra time just to not listen to stuff and come back fresh.
Yeah.
And I think that was an advantage in a way, but we had a couple of ideas of things that we wanted to do that were positive and about heroes. And then after that show in March at Burfest, then I was thinking, you know, this has to be a really positive record because we're all going through this very, very difficult time where we're questioning our freedom and our right to freedom, and we're questioning the government, and we're feeling restricted. Everybody is going to be suffering with their mental health. And I felt that we needed to do something very positive. And Chris Appleton, my co-writer and co-producer, I said to him, this has got to be very positive, man. We've got to really put a message out there and a vibe that people feel better when they've heard this album. And I wanted to reach people because at every Blaze Bayley concert, there has been a free meet and greet. And I've met most of my fans, you know, everyone, and I'm on first name terms with a few fans. And I thought, well, they've been waiting 2 years for a new studio album. And when they get it, when they put their headphones on and I'm in their head, when they put me in their car and drive around with me, when they take me to their bedroom and put me on their hi-fi, then what am I going to say when I'm there? How do I want people to feel? And I wanted people to feel that if they were hopeless, then maybe there was hope. If they were low, maybe they could forget themselves for a while. And that was it. So as we went through the album, then each time we wanted to get that mood and create that journey, it was, is that the right key for this lyric?
Yep.
Is that the right chord for this lyric? Is this the right speed? Is this lyric exactly right? Is this a journey or a series of repetitions? And we'd keep going through that until, you know, bit by bit by bit, with some luck and inspiration and a lot of work, we got the album that we wanted. And War Within Me was one of the last songs that we finished. And it really is the story of yourself and the decisions that you make. Years ago, when I was a young man, then I didn't realize that every small decision that I make contributes to my future and what's going to be happening to me. And so now I do. Now I think, right, every little decision is important because you're on your way somewhere. So War Within Me was about the times when the self-destructive, negative, lazy self takes over, or the responsible self, positive, fights and gets control.
Yep.
And whether we're all wrestling with trying to live to our better nature and our better selves, and sometimes when we feel weary and tired and defeated and we just want to give in to the negative, self-destructive oblivion.
Yep.
And that was it, really. And now the anxiety is over.
Well, I very fortunately have had a chance to listen to the album. I can actually say it from a fan's point of view, because we don't review albums. It's not kind of what we do here. But the actual, if I had to put one word, the one word I would actually use would be uplifting.
Oh, thanks, Stuart. That's great to hear, because that's what I really wanted to get out of it. You know, I use many of the personal journeys that I've had for lyrics, and there's been a few times, I mean, we all go through it, when you feel that you're not going to get through, when things are so difficult that, you know, you can't imagine that you will survive the horrible circumstances that you find yourself in.
Yeah.
And I used a couple of those on the album for my lyrics, and I wanted to be open about my own experience. And I think one that people have picked up on is there's a song called Pick Yourself Up. I had a horrible motorcycle accident and destroyed my right knee. And the physio said, I don't think you'll ever walk without a limp. And I thought at the time, well, you don't know me. And it was a very, very long road. I mean, I had 16 weeks of my leg being in plaster on 2 different occasions, metal work holding the knee together and everything. And it took a long time to come back from that. And a lot of gruesome physio and horrible, intense pain in my legs. But I did manage to come back from it, and I don't limp.
Yep.
And in the song it says, they said I could not walk, so come and walk with me. And that's about that episode. When I decided I wanted to be a singer, then most people around me just thought I was an idiot. And they said, well, you can't sing, and you're not a natural singer. And the girlfriend I had at the time said, you just face it, you're never going to make it. And all of that. And in a magazine, someone wrote, you just can't sing. And, well, I knew that already. I learnt to sing because I wanted to be a singer. I'm not a naturally talented person in that way. I'm not naturally musical. I love music and I love to sing. So I had to learn to sing, and I saw different vocal coaches and singing teachers, and, you know, used and practiced and used my own common sense. And I learnt to sing. And in the local paper one day was a small advert on the music page which said, heavy metal singer required, no experience necessary. And that was Jace and Jeff from Wolfsbane, who were still at school and wanting to get a band together. So I went for that, and that was my first proper band, was Wolfsbane. So that was it. I was on my way, and we stayed together, and we made albums together, and, you know, we're still together now. We trying occasionally, we try to get together to write songs and make albums as well. So from those humble beginnings, I think sometimes it's an equal blend of courage and stupidity in my life, especially as a frontman. Then you've got to be too stupid to know that you can't actually win the crowd or you can't do something. And you've got to have enough courage to say, I'm going to try and do this. And those two, it's just for me personally, that blend of courage and stupidity has got me quite a long way.
Well, one of the things, you're talking about the story with the motorcycle accident. This is not something I've literally only ever brought it up once on the podcast, but it's very fitting for what you just mentioned. I was given 2 years to live 12 years ago, and I have terminal cancer, and it's inoperable. And I've just decided that, like you said, they told you you're not going to walk. Well, I don't plan on dying. That's all it is. I know eventually I will, but I've just made the decision in my head. I have shit days. Let's be honest, which I think is acceptable. But the rest of the days, I look at what I've got as opposed to what I haven't got, and at the end of the day, realistically, we're all dying. I've just maybe got a head start. So to me, again, listening to one or two of the tracks on that album, the message that came through resonated massively with me, because that's where I stand. So, you shooting for a positive album, I can 100% say you have absolutely delivered.
Oh, thanks, Stuart. I've seen it in my life where in many situations where there's been a prognosis that's like a death sentence for people, and they switch off.
Yeah.
And I've also had personal experience of the other side of that. And with the song The Unstoppable Stephen Hawking, I wanted to celebrate the man, not the genius, not the fantastic person that has done so much in physics, but I wanted to celebrate the man, because Stephen Hawking was told that most people with this diagnosis couldn't expect to live for more than 3 years.
Yep.
And 49 years later, with a crippled, withered body and no voice, he was giving a lecture
yeah,
on the other side of the world. So he said, well, I've got too much work to do. And, reading about Stephen Hawking, one of the things that he said, and, I'm always trying to look for these positive tidbits online and just in the general wisdom that is around us. There, he said, well, look for the things that you can do. When somebody who was severely disabled said, well, what would you advise severely disabled people? He said, look at the things that you can do. Focus on the things that you can do.
Yep.
And, I haven't had anywhere near the physical problems, let alone what he's gone through mentally, Stephen Hawking. But he's such an example, and I look back at my life at times when I go, well, you know what? I didn't focus on what I could do, and I just let myself be miserable. I let myself be unhappy. I let myself feel low, because instead of thinking, what can I do? I went, oh no, everything's gone wrong. and just accepted it and let it knock me over. In recent years, I've been here in this house, I think about 10, 11 years now. And I've got the most wonderful, wonderful neighbours that I could possibly have. You know, I moved in and because of costs and everything, then I needed to make my album at home.
Yep.
And I went round to my neighbours and I said, look, they're both retired. And I said, well, I need to make this album at home, and this is how loud it's going to be. And we won't make any noise after 8 o'clock at night and all of that. And they said, just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Do what you've got to do and don't worry about it. And, you know, I've become great friends with my neighbours. And the lady was, a few years ago, she was taken to hospital. She was at the doctor's, and the doctor did a biopsy there, and he said, I'm phoning an ambulance. You've got to go straight to hospital. She went straight to hospital. The consultant came out and said, you've probably got 3 months to live. We'll start treatment now, but, you know, it's not looking hopeful at all. And that was 12 years ago. And her husband, who was with her at the time, fainted and fell on the floor. So all the doctors and nurses were around him, where there's my poor friend, you know, sitting on the bed going, well, and I'm the one that's ill, you know. So I just, you know, I just feel so grateful. We've become great friends. I feel so grateful for every day that she's still around. And she just thought, she never thought about anything except, you know, keeping going. You know, she never accepted that thing. And so I really wanted to do that unstoppable Stephen Hawking, because what he did was impossible. Absolutely impossible, that you lose all the movement in your body, and then using a machine, you learn to talk. And get this, he wrote a book with his eyes. Right? It's just unbelievable. But it's real. It's absolutely true. What he did was he wrote books by sheer force of will. And for me, you know, that is such a wonderful example. I suffer with depression, and I go through bouts of depression, and it's such a wonderful example to me. A hero of physics, because, you know, and I love thinking about all of those big questions, like, is there life on other planets, and are there other planets that could support life as it is on Earth? And, you know, but there's someone who wrote a book with his eyes. You know, it's just incredible example of what is possible and being unstoppable. And I really wanted to tell that story. And when there's 3 scientists, and they all have their own stories, and they're all absolutely remarkable and genius in their own way. There is the dream of Alan Turing. And Alan Turing is the godfather of modern computing. And the test of artificial intelligence is called the Turing test, because in that test, the machine must deceive the human into thinking that it is human.
Yep.
And what got me about this was, so the first time that we have interaction with real artificial intelligence, it will be a deception.
Yep.
So we will be, whoever is doing that test, they will believe a lie, because the machine won't be saying, hello, I'm artificial intelligence. How are you today? It'll be saying, hello, I'm human. How do you feel today?
Yep.
And if you believe that he's human, that's it. He's passed the test by deceiving you. And the moral implication of that, to me, is huge. And the dangers of artificial intelligence are unknown.
Yep.
Elon Musk is constantly warning about the dangers of artificial intelligence, as if it's as dangerous, in his mind it certainly is, as nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
So, are we going to be going to a world of Terminators and Skynet and the Matrix? Or will this be the next stage of evolution on this planet? Dinosaurs, humans, machines. What will happen? It's a very scary thing. And I really wanted to do that, as well as Alan Turing was a hero, and his work in World War II, developing the first real computer, electronic computer. Anyway, Babbage did the mechanical computer.
Yep.
But he's just amazing. So I wanted to do that. And then he's another person, obviously, that refused to believe that it couldn't be done. He made a machine that nobody understood except him, really. And the same was true of Nikola Tesla. And what I like about the Nikola Tesla story is the psychic part of it, really, the dream part of it. When Nikola Tesla was a young boy, he had a dream of a water wheel and Niagara Falls. And years later, he is building the first hydroelectric power station in the world at Niagara Falls.
Yep.
And for me, it was just, when I found that, it was wonderful. I knew a little bit about him, obviously, because he invented the AC/DC electricity.
Yep.
He found a way to make that safe and useful. So it's another incredible story. And once I had those three scientists together on the album, and once I'd given them the proper titles, at first when we were working on it, it was like, Stephen Hawking, that idea started as something simple, inspired by the Simpsons, where he was on the Simpsons.
Yep.
And Homer says Hawk, and I thought, bloody hell, that is so cool, and that the way that he was treated on there, and what they did was respectful but fun and everything, and I thought, that's so cool, because he is really cool, not on first impression, but when you start, his story starts to be revealed to you. For me, he's very, very cool. Yeah. So the Hawk, and we came up with a simple idea, that we were just doing it for a demo to try out a new studio, and we called it the Hawk, and we had it for a couple of years, and then a little bit of that idea became Stephen Hawking, and then it became the unstoppable Stephen Hawking. And then it really, really made sense. And then it became the big metal song on the album.
Yep.
And it feels really, really good to have a song called The Unstoppable Stephen Hawking, because I'm absolutely sure that there will be some people who aren't familiar with the story. of Stephen Hawking, and I know my fans, and they find things and they go, well, who's that then? I'll go and investigate. So I think there will be a few fans who go and investigate Stephen Hawking after this.
Well, I'm a complete and utter kind of nerd. I'm into quantum physics, quantum mechanics, all that sort of stuff. So you're absolutely. I mean, Tesla is just a massive hero of mine, and I always find the fact that he kind of died penniless is just. In a way, it's almost a mark of the man he appeared to be, because it was clear that he was incredibly trusting. From what I understand, I think he was taken advantage of by a number of kind of corporations, and obviously there's the whole story between him and Edison and everything else. But he's a massive figure for me. So hearing that track was another one of those things that I was that ticked a massive box for me personally. But again, you know, I keep saying it, that the whole album is just, well, like I said, you have absolutely just nailed what you clearly set out to do. And I mean, there's 1,001 topics you've brought up. Like I said, we do ask a few kind of out there questions, but I'm not certain that'll head this way with this. But one of the things you were talking about, the whole AI and stuff, and I was going to say to you, I presume you've obviously you've looked at some of the deep fakes that are kind of around at the moment.
No, deep fake.
Well, yeah. What? Obviously, you don't have to do it at this particular moment. But if you, the best one to look up at the moment is to look up Tom Cruise deep fake.
Yeah.
Literally, as in DEEPFAKE.
Yeah.
Somebody has been putting them out on TikTok, and it relates very much to what you were talking about AI and talking about Elon Musk. These are videos that aren't Tom Cruise, and it's impossible to see that it isn't Tom Cruise, and it's very scary. It's very scary.
Yeah.
He's not doing anything particular. Somebody put three videos out there. There was one, him kind of stumbling into a room and kind of telling a little story to the camera about him visiting with, I think it was Gorbachev or Brezhnev. One he was like I said, it was a tall tale. Another one is just him swinging a golf club, and the last one, he just does a magic trick, and he kind of makes a coin disappear, and he just says something about, you have to look at this. It's very deep. It's very deep. And then after that, it was these got hundreds and thousands of views within a few days. And then the person admitted that they'd made them. It's all AI. It's all computer generated. Tom Cruise was never there doing any of this stuff. And it is physically impossible to tell. And of course, the second you start introducing that into the political, especially with the current political climate, it's very, very scary. It's very scary. I mean, I don't have to tell you, obviously, what's going on at the moment with the pandemic and people hearing stories about vaccines, Bill Gates, and all this sort of stuff. And you kind of think to yourself,
how much is that one? That vaccine?
Yeah, exactly.
I thought about that. But, I really thought, well, if I could get the Bill Gates vaccine, but that would be very cool. But I think whoever came up with that theory has missed the point that we've already got. Everybody's got a phone, and then a percentage of people. A percentage of people have got smartphones, and my housemate walked in. And he said, "Why can't Bill Gates phone me if he wants to know what I'm doing?" You know what I mean? So, and anybody who hasn't got a phone, obviously isn't worth spying on, because they're one of the, majority of poor people on Earth who have nothing at all. So it is just absolutely bizarre, that thing. I've never met Bill Gates at all. So, I can only say bits on TV and interviews that I've seen about him, but it does strike me that there's just nothing in it for him.
No.
To actually bog me and put something in me. Okay, yeah, as a heavy metal singer and with the songs that I write, perhaps there will be somebody in the world somewhere that wants to stop me. But I don't think Bill Gates is one of those.
No, it's probably more likely to be Dolly Parton.
But that's it. Yeah. Well, Dolly Parton is a hero of music, not just of country music, but she is a hero of music because of her background, where she came from, what was happening in Nashville at the time she tried.
Yep.
She first went to Nashville with a guitar and, as they say, a bucket full of dreams. And that was it. So she is an example, writing her own songs, her incredible singing voice. She's an example, in music, of another example of the impossible being achievable. And, one of the songs that I use for reference when I'm setting up my studio, because I often have to move things around and jiggle it when I set things up, then I use those old Dolly Parton recordings to set up my studio, because the stereo on them and where the instruments are placed and how they've been recorded is all analog and simple and very well done. And it's very easy to set my speakers up, set my thing. Yeah, that's right. To that. And also it's not aggressive and firing in your face. So I often use that. She's absolutely a hero in music, Dolly Parton, for what she's what she's achieved is absolutely fantastic.
Agreed. And on a tangent to the lot of the general things we're talking about here, this may be almost too much of a big question to pose, but I will pose it anyway. Do you have any sort of insight as to why you think society is seems to be give so much more kind of credence to negativity? Because again, talking about the album and the uplifting, the positive nature of it, why do you think that is kind of not the norm? I mean, you look at media coverage, you just look at the world, it seems to me, if you do something, let's face it, if you go on a shooting spree, you're going to be all over the news. But if you do something for the greater good, it doesn't get any coverage. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that, or why you think that's the case?
Well, yeah, I do really, and I saw a thing years and years ago. It was on like after school TV, I think like a Blue Peter type thing, where they were going inside the news, and it was saying how you put the news together, the 6 o'clock news. The stories come in and from Reuters and different things. And then the person that was doing it, I won't name, but I despise intensely, especially after this, said, and then we use a thing called news sense. We decide which stories it would be best for the public to hear. And it just hit me then like a rock in the head. Hang on. They're not telling us what is really going on. They're telling us what they think we should know, not what is actually going on. And so you have this thing of bad news is good news because it's more shocking and attention grabbing. And it was just a horrible revelation. Nothing is all that bad. And then years later, Martin Bell, I think, came out and said it. He said, there's so much reporting of bad things. things aren't that bad. And I think it's something in in modern news, let's say the last 60 years of news since World War II, especially, that things have been, well, let's report the bad things. Let's report this. Okay, bad things happen. There are some things which are shocking and we should know about, but that isn't everything that happened. So they have created this falsehood, a complete falsehood, that the shape of the world is as they have put it on TV and in newspapers. That's not the true amount of what happens. That's not all the news. That doesn't take account of anything good that happens. It goes unreported. It's not news when somebody does something good. And thank goodness for Captain Tom. That he's done something. He did something that he didn't do it to get in the news. But they had to say something, and then he became a news story.
Yeah.
That was very positive, and obviously very sad that he's passed now. But that's an example of people doing good things. That he's not, the other thing they put it out was there's plenty of news organisations that put it out as if Captain Tom is some kind of altruistic miracle.
Yeah.
And completely rare. That is totally untrue, but that is the vibe. There are thousands and thousands of people who are altruistic. There are thousands of people who do things for no other reason that they think it's the right thing to do, and they're helping people. Thousands of people like that do good things and try to do the best. It's not an unusual thing, but we don't get these things. One of the things, at least, is we do see a little bit more on the news about some of these things. When they run out of news, they'll do something about good things. That's my opinion. Yeah. And I think that's just bled over, and as I found out about Noam Chomsky and his philosophy and the different things that he was concerned about, and how things are misreported, and and this phrase that Donald Trump came up with, taking all the politics out of it. But one of the things I really enjoyed was when things were called out as fake news.
Yeah.
Again and again, fake news. And he often illustrated it with, well, here's why it's fake news, because there's the truth. Taking all the politics out of it, just that one thing, fake news. Yep. And I think, well, that's a thing where hopefully that a few people will not just go, oh, that's a Trumpism, but a few people will go, well, maybe I should, before I believe the news, maybe I should think about it. I remember one very simple thing where I was having a conversation. I stop up all night often, listening to music, working, trying to do some more things on my book and all of that. Just because, when we're on tour, often I've just got into the habit of stopping up very late. Yep. And it's not an adjustment that's easy to make or I care to make. So I'm often up all night, and then I was watching the thing. There was a problem with Europe, and it was some problem where with the French Minister of Finance, and I don't know. I can't be accurate about it, so let's say Greece.
Yep.
And I saw it, and the French Minister of Finance was there live on the news saying, yes, we've come to an agreement. We're going to pay this. That's what we're going to do. Greece will be okay. That's the finance minister directly live on the news. Then a couple of hours later, my housemate walks in, says, oh, what a shame for Greece. They're not going to support Greece. I said, they are. He said, they're not. I said, well, who told you that? He said, it's in the paper. I said, what paper? He said, the Express. I said, well, I've just seen the French minister live on TV. Live on TV. So are you saying what the Express says is true, or what the words that actually came out of the French Minister of Finance's mouth, are they true? Which is it? Because they both of them can't be true, but and the French, and get this, the Minister of Finance for France, he's not claiming to be true. He's just saying something that is true. But you know what I mean? So this fakeness, this, years ago I stopped believing the news.
Yeah.
Years ago. And it's only since the pandemic that I have watched the news just to see, and I don't trust them. And I think, once journalism was once a noble profession, and I think it's gone now. I would never trust a journalist, really.
Yeah.
In these modern times, because it seems to have become the story: who is first, not who is true and accurate.
Absolutely.
So, since the days of Watergate and Woodward and Bernstein, since those days, then journalism for me as a profession has gone down in my estimation.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are good journalists out there who are checking their sources and who want to do the right thing. But they are a few who have been overwhelmed by the lust for being first and not being accurate. And there's so many examples of it. It's just horrible. So this is why I think it's fed into this negative thing. And this despair is fueled by all of the news media. And it's just, it's horrible to me. And then now, of course, we have access to Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and all of this. The advantage, the good side of it for me is it's free to keep in touch with my friends. Well, relatively free. I've got to have my broadband or whatever.
Yeah.
So I say to my friend in Germany or France or Greece or Brazil or Chile or Peru, what's happening there?
Yeah.
And they tell me.
Yeah.
And what's happening in Mexico? And they tell me. I didn't know that in the early stages of this, that last year, doctors and nurses in Mexico were being beaten and killed for spreading coronavirus.
Yeah.
Because people, that the suspicion was in the public. I didn't know about that. There was nothing on TV news in the UK about that.
Yeah.
That's not important.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that way. That's great. I can get news from actual people who are actually there. And in the other way, it's unfortunate because loads of people just spew up and crap out stuff through their keyboard and put it online. And here's what I want to know. Why are you putting things online that you wouldn't say to someone's face?
Oh, don't start.
Why are you putting things online that you would be ridiculed for? At what point do you leave the manners and decency with which you would hopefully treat your mother and father and friends and spouse outside, right? And suddenly there is no conscience, no decency, no manners, no courtesy because you're touching a keyboard.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't make sense to me.
No.
Because you can't be slapped in the face physically by someone who is injured, because you can't be shouted at by somebody. Oh, so it's okay to literally shit through your fingers. And for me, that is, it is the Wild West. It is a new frontier, and it does have to be tamed, and laws have to come in and be able to be enforced to start getting this wonderful, incredible tool that we have, that no other generation has ever had this ability to communicate at the speed of light with people on the other side of the world. You know, where you can communicate with people around governments, you can do all sorts of wonderful, incredible, positive things. Why on earth do something negative? It's something that a guy that does most of my shows in Brazil said to me once. We just put a couple of things on about what was happening to us on the tour, and he said, "This is the most powerful tool that you have ever had access to communicate directly with people. Why would you say anything negative?"
Yeah.
And it really made me think, you know, and after that, then I thought, you know, it's just the same as saying, think before you speak. Don't blurt things out. And after that, I thought, you know what, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because and I changed really. Then I thought, you know what, so I don't tweet. I don't put many statements online. I don't put much on. I'm not someone that follows the convention of electronic media and, you've got to put something on, you know, every day and stuff like that to build it up. I know all that's true, but I'm just not someone who's involved in that, because for me, well, if I'm going to say something, I want it to be positive. And I don't want to be blurting out things all the time and just become noise. You know, if I say something, I want people to go, "Oh, he's saying something, so it must be something important."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get what you're saying. I mentioned this, I think it was the guitarist from Whitesnake was on a few episodes back. And I said to him, one of the things I've kind of never got my head around, because like you, I have a Facebook account for the podcast, and that's basically it. So we put up the stuff, the fans, they subscribe and everything anyway. But I said to him, I've never kind of got my head around this thing of where I see people will post just something like just cooked a wonderful meal for my incredible wife, and they'll have a picture of it. And I kind of, in my head, I'm very simplistic. I'm kind of thinking, well, if I'm with my wonderful wife, I want to be with my wonderful wife. I don't want the rest of Facebook looking in. And also, if I've cooked her a meal, as long as she likes it, I don't need a lot of people who I don't know patting me on the back. But again, maybe it's, I don't know, you know, maybe it's just a mindset. My wife actually paid me the best compliment ever. 2 weeks ago, she said to me, I was the most uncomplicated person she'd ever met, and I really took that as a compliment, you know.
I can see both sides of this, though. You know, yeah, I think there is a thing where it's like, well, you know, why do you want to do that? And I know pictures of food is a very popular one, but on the other side of it, I've become friends and quite close with people that I don't actually physically see very often.
Yep.
And it's just a general thing to talk about. What you had to eat today? Oh, I've had a curry. Or I've made a curry. Oh yeah, I'll send you a picture. Oh, that looks nice. What you had? Oh, that looks nice. You know, and on that level, it's absolutely understandable because I've done it.
Yep.
And if I've cooked something, I've gone, oh, look at this. Because actually, to cook something at home, not a ready meal, not fast food, not delivered, is something a little bit special. Yeah. Just a little bit special. So don't play down the fact that you've managed to cook a meal. You know, that is something to be admired in these times where we are told that sugar and salt is injected into all of our food, that processed food contains carcinogens and all of this. If you took the time to prepare a meal from scratch yourself I think that is worthy of an award. It's at least worthy of a few likes on Facebook, even though you're not doing it for that. And from a friendship point of view, it's just a normal thing, you know. But of course, that's where it's okay. But then it has to logically go much further for some people, and they're putting, oh, and here's me drinking a nice glass of beer. And then it goes even further for some other people. Here's me affected by a lot of beer. You know, and that's when he goes, oh, so why don't I want to see this?
Yeah.
You know, for me, if I put a photo on, it's got to be funny, informative, or something that one of my friends wants to see.
Yeah.
And that's what I normally try to do. It can't be like, look how cool I am, you know. But I think this is a different world.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
You know, my friends send me pictures of where they've been and what they've been doing. And that's just nice because you can share things as friends in a way that we couldn't. And who knew, man, that this lockdown situation and being made to stay at home, how would we have functioned without a technology like this? I remember years ago, and you probably remember this too, when you looked at the phone before you picked it up and thought, can I afford to make this phone call? And, you know, I had, I'm not proud of this, but this is the circumstances at the time. This is just as the internet started. Just before, like a month before, you can make calls online, and then they weren't reliable. I had a £900 phone bill from Brazil because of some upset that I won't go into. And that wasn't the only £100 or, you know, phone bill that I had. That's just not in, don't even think about that now. I don't think how expensive, what's it going to cost me to talk to somebody. I just think, will they be available? It's a different world, really. So there's loads of wonderful things and loads of bad things. I think there's more wonderful things than bad things.
Well, on a very light-hearted note, because I think we're probably fairly close generation-wise, and this is going to be a very English thing because I know this wasn't something internationally, but I'm presuming you obviously also remember, I think, what people used to refer to as the pips when you used to be in a phone box.
Oh yeah, man! My first girlfriends. Yeah. That's how old I am. I'm so old, you know, getting changed for the phone box. And trying to find a phone box. But most phone box worked. And then struggling, you know, having a stack of coins there to talk to my girlfriend and making a choice, which is how old I am, between 2p and 10p. Because that was a significant amount of money that I earned from my paper round. So I had to, you know, what if I put 10p in and we don't talk that long, you know? So, oh man. Yeah, I remember that. It's just, and you hit the pips and you also hear the girlfriend, you hear the thought process of the girlfriend. He's only put 2p in, that's all he thinks I'm worth.
Yeah. So now I hope you've never been asked this. Did you ever use dialer disc back in the day?
Dialer disc?
Yeah, that was.
That's it's. Is it like an anti-radio thing?
It was. Well, it was. I'm trying to remember.
Where you phone up.
Yeah, you literally phoned up. So again, it would have been a BT number. I can't remember what it was, but they actually. And when you look back on that, that's a bizarre service. It just played a random song.
I remember it now. You say, but it really does sound like, you know, and this is with the greatest level of respect, that they thought that it was a kind of soft Samaritans.
Yeah, I suppose.
You know, the people who were really bored, drunk, and fed up. Well, they're not suicidal, but they're fed up enough that we could get 10 pence off them for, this, just because it was actually using the phone was, quite a fun thing and not that usual unless you worked in somewhere on the phone all day.
That's it. It's mad. It's mad. So, heading back to the proper side of music, I've got a couple of questions for you. With the kind of changing world, does it affect? And I'm talking about kind of sensibilities and how you have to walk such a tightrope now with the way society is, good, bad, and indifferent. Does that affect your lyrics? Is there anything that you kind of write nowadays that you have to almost second guess yourself and say, oh, hang on, I don't want to upset somebody, perhaps I should, does any of that come into it?
No, not really. Not for me. There are a couple of moments where, writing about something in World War II, where I'm sensitive to, fans from different places. But really, it doesn't affect, it only affects me in a very small way, and in the way that if I've been to a country and a lyric would come up, I want to make sure that it's accurate and that anybody who took that the wrong way would be really silly for taking it the wrong way, because they obviously haven't read all of the lyrics of all the songs. The thing for me is taking things out of context. So in my mind, some of my lyrics are stories. So in my mind, I'm not going to not write something because I'm worried that someone won't read to the end. So that's it. When I write a lyric, I've spent a day, at least a day on it, in hours at various times, often a lot longer, choosing every word, looking at every syllable and consonant musically. So I don't agree with, I shouldn't say something because it may upset somebody. Because, I think that's a part of free speech, is being offended. Part of free speech is people's right to say, I really don't like what you do, or I think what you do is rubbish. But I don't think it's fair for people to go to say someone may be offended by this, so we've got to censor it. One of the funniest and most ridiculous and, to be honest, quite disturbing cases of censorship that I've heard of in recent times on social media was Steve Danger, who is the drummer with Wolfsbane, and obviously I'm just like friends for so long. He has been banned from Facebook so many times, but he is genuinely quite an offensive person at times. That's who he is. If you know him, it's like, that's it. You just take that. Oh yeah, God, there he is saying some ridiculous stuff. And on this one occasion, he just said, "Oh, I've been banned again." I said, "Why?" He said, "Because of a photo I put on." I said, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I put a photo on, and underneath I put, 'Look at this moron,' and they banned me." Right. And I said, "Who was the photo of?" He said, "It was a photo of myself." So they've banned him for saying something bad about himself. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's like you can go anywhere with that. But the basic thing he put on is, "Look at this moron," as a joke to his friends, because all of us that know him, and it was a picture of him pulling a face because he was just waking up on a tour bus, and like that, this is how I feel in the morning, and they banned him. It's like, what? Because possibly could have offended someone.
Yeah.
Who would it offend?
Yeah.
Himself. So they've actually banned him because potentially he could have offended himself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you said, it is the whole good and bad. I mean, my thing has always been intent. It's always been with words, with images, with everything. It's always whether there is intent, because at the end of the day, I mean, let's face it, you can say exactly the same sentence with just different tones, different inflection, different punctuation, and the intent becomes absolutely critical.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. And I've one of the things that I have consciously done with almost all of my writing is I have avoided politics, any mainstream politics, and I've concentrated on making my lyrics personal and about the individual, not about the wider consequence of things that happen in society. That's generally speaking, that's what I've tried to do, because I don't want to get pulled in to this, whole thing, a political debate or something, where I'm actually trying to avoid that. I'm trying to be someone who is almost a refuge away from that. On one level, I'm an entertainer, and part of my job is to make you or allow you to forget yourself.
Absolutely.
To forget your life for a few minutes, maybe for an hour during a gig, for a few minutes during a song, maybe for 40 minutes that you listen to the album, that you can just for a few minutes forget about everything.
Yeah.
Because it can't do anything to you for that 40 minutes. Yeah. And do that. So for me, I've seen my job as a frontman, a singer, an entertainer, as well. I'm here trying to help people out of their heads. I'm trying to give someone something to look at that's not their life. And maybe in the better part of what I do, and it's incredibly cheesy and pretentious, and I know it, but maybe to help someone feel a little bit better by the end of the album.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Now, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the podcast, we actually have a stack of questions. I haven't asked a single one of them because it's just been a fascinating chat. But there is one question that it's the only kind of set question they have that we ask everybody, and it is when Blaze Bayley has taken his final encore, and I'm talking about spiritually and not physically. When you are no longer, how would you want to be remembered as a person?
Yeah, that is quite a big question, isn't it? Well, I mean, I suppose there is a very simple answer. I'd like to be remembered as a good person and a good human being.
Yep.
That's it, really. I don't think it could be any more complicated than that. For me, I feel incredibly lucky. I have wonderful fans that support me. I live my dream of being a professional heavy metal singer. I own my own record label, which is tiny. I'm the only artist on it. I'm completely independent, and no one can tell me what to write about, what to sing about, what artwork I should have. And I'm supported by fans, many of whom have been with me for years through good and bad, through my ups and downs, through my struggles. They've come to see me at times when, to be honest, I wasn't at my best, and they've still come back to see me again. People who've supported me through thick and thin, and I feel a certain obligation to those people that I have to do my best work. Now, whatever that is, whether it's good or bad by the general consideration of criticism in popular music, I have to feel that I've done my best work each time. I did the best I could possibly do. That's what I feel I have to do. So I would hope that if there is an end, that my fans would be able to say, well, I supported that person. They helped me feel better in my life. Their music means something to me. And if they say, well, I think he's a good person, I think he was a good human being, then that would, for me, that would be enough. I don't need any more than that, really.
Absolutely. Well, again, it has been a genuine pleasure. We will obviously, in the show notes, we're going to kind of link to where people can get the album and et cetera. And again, purely from a fan's point of view, not from a professional point of view, from a fan's point of view, to me, I actually think you said it yourself, if you're striving to do your best work, to me, this album is your best work. It is phenomenal.
Oh,
so
thanks,
from a fan's point of view, I thank you. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. And if you ever want to come back, I could happily talk to you for hours.
Thank you very much, Stuart. Wishing you all of the best, mate. Wish you well.
So, I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have, please do consider subscribing and also leaving us a review, as it does help greatly with the rankings. Also, if you have suggestions for future guests, please reach out to us on Facebook, Instagram, X, etc. We would love to hear your ideas and we would love to hear from you. Thanks very much.